Welcome to our posts. Today we will see stories of am I the a-hole? Am I the a-hole for telling my son he can't stay with me when I found out why his wife kicked him out? My daughter-in-law is pregnant with my first grandchild. She is suffering from placenta previa. She is on bed rest. It would be dangerous for her to have sex. So my a-hole son decided that he should cheat. She found out and kicked him out of the house. He came to stay with us because she was having crazy pregnancy hormones. Every time he called her, they would fight. After a couple of days, we told him to go see if she calmed down. Her mom is staying with them, so we weren't worried about her. My wife called her to check in on her and found out the truth. I very upset. When he got home from work, I told him he needed to get out of my house. He wasn't someone I wanted to associate with at the moment, and it would be best if he wasn't near me. My wife tried to say that I was being too hard on him. That I should just give them a chance to work things out. I can't even look at him. I don't want such a stupid boy in my house. My wife and I are still fighting about it, but I am willing to die on this hill. Next story. Am I the a-hole for making my daughter miss once-in-a-lifetime events, homecoming and senior prom, and delete all of her social media as punishment for bullying? Yesterday, I was informed that my daughter Sam was a part of a group of students who bullied another girl to the point that she had to switch schools. There was a racial aspect to the bullying, which came as a complete shock since my wife and I truly did our best to raise our 3 kids to be kind and honest individuals. I don't believe that a grounding and a confiscation of electronics is harsh enough for what Sam did, so I told Sam that she won't be allowed to participate in homecoming or attend senior prom. I also told her that she won't be getting a car for her 18th birthday either. Finally, I told her that she'll have to delete all of her social media accounts with either me or her mother watching. Sam begged me to allow her to go to senior prom because it's a once-in-a-lifetime event, and keep just her Instagram account because it had pictures going back years that weren't saved anywhere else. I told her that she shouldn't have been a racist bully. My parents are temporarily staying with us while their house is undergoing renovations. They agreed that what Sam did was completely out of line and must be punished, but they think that making my daughter miss homecoming and senior prom and forcing her to delete her social media is far too harsh. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife it is time she went back to work? My wife has been out of work since 2018. She had a mental breakdown during her 5th year of teaching. She has been going to therapy since, and we started marriage counseling during COVID. Reason for marriage counseling was because she thought I was pushing her too hard to go back to work before her, and her therapist thought she was ready. I tried to explain many times that was not my intent, but realistically speaking, for me to keep up with expenses and retirement contributions, I pretty much have to take on extra shifts, which sometimes clock in over 18 hours a day, and on average I have been pulling 84-hour weeks. I have been doing this since she stopped working. We recently had a fight because I had an extremely rough week and had the conversation again about her going back to work. She opened up with the same line she always does: "We do not feel it is the right time yet." She feels I have made great progress, and if I rush it I run the risk of losing it. The we being her and therapist. I told her I really do not give f what her therapist has to say, and I am sick of you hiding behind her words whenever this topic comes up. She started to cry, telling me she does not like being this way either and I am belittling her due to suffering from mental health issues. I replied saying I do not indeed to belittle you or not take your issues seriously. Problem is I am running myself ragged, and what happens if I have a mental break? Do you think I will have the luxury of not working? No, I will have to push through my demons. She said her therapist warned her this would happen sooner or later. I would try to manipulate her into doing something she was not ready to do. This is when I really lost it and just let it all out. I did not say anything kind. I told her she insults me for thinking what I am doing is manipulation. I told her I am working these extra shifts so she can be home and crap playing games. I told during this entire time you have not even made an effort to improve on certain skills. I told her she can still not cook to save her life, and that was sick of coming home after 12 or 18-hour days. Just make us dinner, cause her idea of making dinner is pretty a pre-made in the oven or ordering out. Among other things. That said, she stormed out the house crying, yelling and shouting how I am a piece of crap, and rather see myself comfortable versus her getting better. So here I am. I do not feel at the core I am wrong, and while what I said was harsh, I think it did have to be said. So was I the a-hole here? Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my family how much my fiancé earns after years of them making fun of his job? My family is very well educated and full of professionals, including several doctors, surgeons, dentists, etc. I have a good career and make a good living. When I met my fiancé, he was at my house to supervise a roofing crew the insurance company hired to replace my damaged roof. I instantly fell for him when he pulled up in his truck and couldn't keep my eyes off of him for the rest of the day as he gave orders to his men. When we started dating, he was vague about his job and I just chalked it up to him being insecure about me having a better career. I didn't care about our income imbalance. When we got serious, we talked about our future plans, and that was when he told me the full extent of his little construction company. I was shocked that his construction earnings is as much as my dad's surgeon's salary. Gradually he took me around to the handful of construction lots and shopping centers he owns. His rental income combined with his construction earnings is double that of my dad's. He said that few people know about his finances and he expects me to keep what I know to myself. My parents disapproved of him since the first time I brought him home. My dad coined the term toolboy and the rest of my family joined in whenever they talk behind my fiancé's back. They don't call him that to his face but instead make snide remarks. Once my mom said during dinner that they're thinking about hiring someone to mow their lawn, then turned to my fiancé and asked him what he charges. I always try to defend him and it's a constant battle. It's gotten worse since we're planning our wedding and the other day my nerves just broke. Yesterday parents were trying to get me into getting a prenuptial, then my dad said, "You have to protect your assets just in case Toolboy decides to go slumming." I lost it and yelled at my parents. During our shouting, I blurted out his earnings and that he makes more than both of them combined, then I stormed out. I told my fiancé what happened, but instead of supporting me, he got mad that I told his parents that. I argued that I was defending him, then we got into an argument. My parents and family are mad at me for keeping secrets. My fiancé is mad at me for not keeping secrets. I'm stuck in the middle and don't know what to do. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not forcing my son to rename his hamster? So to start this off, my son is 11 and has been begging for a family pet for a while. I finally gave in when I felt we were ready to take one on, and also when I felt he was ready for the responsibility that comes with one. I expected a dog or cat, but he really wanted a hamster. So we spent a little over a week prepping, helping him study hamster care and dedicated a sizable spot in our living room for necessities and home. We finally get around to picking one out at the pet shop. He's set on the name Sonic, but the lady ringing us up mentioned the one he picked out was a girl and that she could get him a boy if he wanted, and he just lit up and said that's Amy, and that was that. We took Amy home. This was in March. My sister-in-law found out she was pregnant somewhere around that time, and last month they found out they were having a girl. Basically what happened was, they were picking out names and one of the names they narrowed it down to add Amy as the middle name. I made a joke of something like, "Hey, we already have an Amy at our house." Trying to be funny, but sister-in-law didn't think it was. I didn't think much about it at the time, but a couple of days ago she asked to come by to talk. She started off by saying the joke I made was in bad taste. I apologized for it, and then she suggested I change the name. I told her I didn't think that would go over well with my son, and then she outright demanded it be changed whether he likes it or not because she wasn't going to have a child share the name with a hamster. I agreed to talk it over with my son to see what he thought, and of course he didn't want to. He even thought it was cool that his cousin would share her name with his hamster. I tried convincing him to rename her Sonic even, or some other Sonic character, but he didn't want that. I explained how sister-in-law feels about this, and he felt a bit hurt because he thought he upset sister-in-law, but he really didn't want to change the name and didn't understand why they couldn't just share it. I told sister-in-law that my son was set on Amy, and she blew up. I'll admit I got a bit defensive and reacted poorly, but I essentially told her it wasn't a huge deal. It's not like anyone is going to make the connection, and by the time her child is old enough to know her name, Amy the hamster likely won't be around. She claimed it was embarrassing because she would always know the connection in her mind, to which I simply told her if it was such a strong reminder of a hamster then maybe it wasn't a name she should use for her daughter. My brother has told me that I am being selfish for not forcing my son to pick another name. Sister-in-law obviously thinks I'm the a-hole, and my mom has said the whole thing is childish. So am I the a-hole? Next story. Am I the a-hole for not moving out of the property my parents gave me so that my golden child sister, her husband, and kid could move in? I, 34 female, and my sister, 31 years old, was the first among 4 siblings to have a kid, 5 female. My niece is incredibly spoiled by my sister, our parents, and extended family, and my parents bend over backwards for my sister's requests, like canceling their anniversary trip because my sister asked to babysit while she goes on a girls' weekend. This spring, my boyfriend and rock in my life passed away. At the same time, I lost my job. I had a lot going on and moved back to my hometown. My parents own a rural property they used to rent out. The property had been empty for a while and fairly run down. My parents invited me to stay there, rent-free, told me it was my home for as long as I needed. I invested a lot of my time and money, found a remote gig, into getting the house fixed up. I also made friends with Ol, a Ukrainian refugee with a young daughter. Ol was struggling and I invited her to stay with me for a couple of months while she gets back on her feet. I could use company as well. She was very thankful but hasn't made a firm response yet as she's trying to make things work independently. My parents had no issue with this. Until recent drama. My brother-in-law had been working for a shady company, which skirted regulations for profit. The law had caught up with the owner, who folded the company and left the country. I'll cut this short given the post-character limit. A few other things went down and my sister's family abruptly moved to our hometown, moving in with my parents. Almost immediately my parents and sister approached me to swap. I move in with our parents and sis and her family take my place. They said the house I lived in was too large for one person, and it'd be so much better for my niece to live on a beautiful property in nature. I didn't understand. My parents have 2 guest rooms, my sister and brother-in-law and the kid have their own bedrooms. I sure didn't at 5. My brother-in-law is still loaded from his old job and could easily get them a place, too. They are buying a flashy car. When I mentioned my work on the property, it was dismissed. When I reminded them about Ol, my parents were outraged. I was still intent on helping someone else and their child and not my own sister and niece. They kept making out my sister's situation to be nearly as bad as Ol's. Eventually it came down to my parents saying, "You're living on our property, you'll do as we want." I said, "Well, you gave it to me and said this was my house as well, to be my home for as long as I needed. But if we want to talk in property terms and not family terms, evict me then." My parents are not evicting, but I receive daily calls and messages from them and extended family guilt tripping me and calling me an a-hole for not giving up the more comfortable space to my sister, who is in such a difficult situation and has a little child. Only my brothers see my side, but since they are young men in college their opinion means nothing to my family. I feel like I am taking crazy pills. Am I the a-hole? I hope you guys like this video. If you did, make sure like, comment, share and subscribe the channel or posts.